We're going to start the session in 2 minutes. We're going to start the session in a few minutes. I think there's 3 minutes left before the top of the hour. We're going to start the session in a couple of minutes. We'll start exactly at the top of the hour. We're going to start in 1 minute. Perfect. It's at the top of the hour. Welcome everyone to this National Engineering Month workshop by WES, the WES 2025 conference, which takes place in May. We are doing a pre-summit workshop to commemorate March as National Engineering Month in Canada. My name is Claudia Gomez Villeneuve, and I will be your presenter today. My actual name is Claudia. So for those of you who speak a little bit of Spanish, Claudia, not Claudia. That's the English pronunciation of my name. Much prefer Claudia, the Spanish pronunciation. If you need to visit our website for the WES 2025 Summit, I put it on the slides. So women in Eng
We
2Gs.
have the best guest in the production with this.
That way you can see the speakers for the summit on May 23, 2025. It will be a fully online conference, so you can see the speakers. Because you are here, because you're attending this session to commemorate National Engineering Month, all of you get 2 free tickets to attend West 2025. So you can come and you can bring a buddy with you. The summit is fully online, so you can be anywhere you want, at the office, at home, traveling for work or traveling for vacation. The summit is fully online on May 23. So that's a benefit to many people, especially people who have to take care of children or their parents, their elderly family members. National Engineering Month is a creation, I guess, of Engineers Canada. So we would like to thank Engineers Canada for bringing our attention to this amazing, I guess, anniversary, being March Engineering Month. Recently, only last week, I attended the Iron Ring ceremony. So the Iron Ring ceremony is as an extra thing on top of your professional engineer status, you can actually get an engineering ring to add to your pinky finger. It is an extra thing that you can do to be part of our industry, I guess. So you get 2 tickets for free for attending this session, this pre-summit session. All you have to do is email info@womenineng2gs.ca to confirm that you're going to get the tickets as well. All right, let's get started. My plan is to present all the material until 30 minutes into the session. So if you're on Mountain Time, by 11:30 we'll begin the Q&A. And if you're on Eastern Time, by 1:30 we will begin the Q&A, question and answer session. That way, let me get all of the theory in place, and then you can add questions for the rest of the 30 minutes of the session. So we will be done at the end of this hour. Please type your questions on the chat now or during the session or at the end. Either way, I will read the questions from the chat in the order that they have been, in which they have been added. So let's begin. For this project, this is a project actually. For this project of becoming a P.Eng in Canada, a professional engineer in Canada, there are 5 criteria that you need to fulfill. And the criteria is listed on the website of whatever engineering regulator you need to follow. For example, if you live in Ontario, there is an engineering regulator for Ontario. So you have to follow the instructions of the engineering regulator of the province that you are planning to work in. So these are the 5 criteria or 5 steps to follow. I used to think that there were 3 steps. That's the title of this session, the 3 steps to becoming a professional engineer in Canada. But there's actually 5. I used to lump number 3, number 4, and number 5 together, and they are actually separate criteria. So there are 5 steps to follow to becoming a P.Eng in Canada. Again, it might change slightly for the requirements in Ontario versus the requirements in Alberta versus the requirements in Yukon or the requirements in Nova Scotia. So every province that you are planning to work in will have its own set of requirements. In general, these are the five. These are the five. All the regulators in Canada work together to try to be as similar as possible with some success, but make sure that you follow the instructions of your province where you plan to work. Let's start with academics. Academics is your education. Do you have training in engineering? Do you have a degree in engineering, a bachelor degree in engineering? So there are two situations. Either you have a Canadian degree in engineering from an accredited university, or you have an engineering degree from another country that is not Canada, which means you have to make it equivalent. So if you are born in Canada, you went to school in Canada, all your university is in Canada, you have a Canadian degree if you graduated in Canada. As long as the organization that you went to school in, the institution, is accredited as a Canadian engineering educator. If you are from another country, you were born in another country, you went to school in another country that is not Canada, and you're planning to come to Canada to work, you need to find a way of making your foreign degree equivalent to the Canadian model. Not easy. Let me just tell you that right off the bat. It's not easy. Why? Because every country is different. And because every country is different, you have to fulfill the requirements of the country that you're coming into. So, Canadian degree, some people with Canadian degrees cannot get their P.Eng. So, it's not just immigrants that have the challenge. Also, people educated in Canada have issues getting their P.Eng. If your degree is not equivalent, there may be a need for you to write equivalency exams. So there is a need, a potential need for you to write equivalency exams. And when that happens, depends on the degree that you are planning to work in, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, whatever it is that you need to meet or fulfill, that would be the one that you need. I'm just gonna stop sharing for a second. I just switched my internet, 1 second, so that I can open my camera. Perfect. I'm connected to another internet. I just want to make sure that you can see my camera. It's not it's not appearing on screen. So I just want to make sure that it is. We'll see. I have a network issue. Hopefully it will resolve soon. I just want to see I want you to see my face on screen. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. So prepare to write exams to make your degree equivalent. Let me just confirm that you can see the PPT slides on the screen. Can somebody type on the chat that they can see the PPT slides on the screen? Perfect. Perfect. Excellent. So it's just my camera that is not showing. We'll see. We'll see. It's not essential. So exams. I'm actually a professor of engineering at the University of Alberta in Alberta, Canada. So the next few slides are some of the courses that I teach. So I'm going to show you the content of some of those exams. If you're a civil engineer, your bachelor degree is in civil engineering, there is a fundamentals of engineering exam specifically for civil, one for mechanical, one for electrical, one for industrial, environmental, computers, um, chemical. So there are special courses depending on the bachelor degree that you're trying to make equivalent. Of course, there's fundamentals added to the questions that everybody gets. Everybody gets a certain kind of of um, of questions depending on the degree that they are trying to find equivalency to. I'm gonna switch to my other Wi-Fi. I think one was better than the other. So, depending on the bachelor degree of engineering that you have, the exam will fulfill the equivalency of that education. Now, for the following slides, there's a lot of math and chemistry discussion. I'm not going to read it all, don't worry. I have to finish my theoretical sections by the 30 minutes mark so we can do Q&A. But here are the contents of these fundamentals of engineering exam. There is a section on mathematics, section 1. Section 2, probability and statistics. Section 3, chemistry. Section 4, instrumentation and controls. Section 5, engineering ethics and societal impacts. Section 6, safety, health, and environment. Section 7, engineering economics. Section 8, statistics. Section 9, dynamics. Section 10, strength of materials. Section 11, materials. Section 12, fluid mechanics. Section 13, basic electrical engineering. Section 14, thermodynamics and heat transfer. I know this looks like a lot, so it depends on what bachelor degree you're trying to make equivalent to the Canadian one. Some of those sections will be part of your exam. My message to you, don't give up. Sometimes we have people that come to Canada and they're still young and they still remember math, fluid mechanics, structural engineering, and they still don't want to do the exams. And other times we have people who have been working their whole lives in engineering in other countries, and they come here and they have to write these exams as if they are going to school all over again. But please remember, it's because there's no match for a certain subject or course. There's no match with the course you took in your home country. It doesn't match the course that is validated in Canada. So it's only a mix and match situation. So the exams are trying to make it all match. And sometimes the exams are to replace a course that you took in your home country that is not equivalent. Why are countries so different? Even your brother and your sister are different from you. So imagine that. Some of you like pineapple on your pizza, and your brother, maybe your twin brother, hates pineapple in their pizza. Same family, same parents, same education, home, family experience, and you'll both have different opinions. So imagine how universities around the world cannot agree on what a mathematics course is, or what a dynamics course is, or an basic electrical engineering course is. So is that match that has to happen, and the regulator wants to fill in that gap with those exams. So don't give up. These exams can validate your engineering degree, and you only have to do it once and forever. because every country has different rules. Step number two in becoming a P.Eng in Canada, work experience. So if you only have the education, if you only have the academics, you can become an EIT, engineer in training. So I'm going to put it on the chat. If you only have education, then you can apply to become an EIT. EIT is engineer in training. All the kids in Canada, when they finish their engineering degree in a Canadian university, they don't have work experience, but they have education. They have their academics complete. So they apply to a PEGA if you're in Alberta, or to PEO if you're in Ontario, or to APEX if you're in Saskatchewan. They apply for an engineer in training designation. If you are, I guess, in a rush to start working in engineering when you come to Canada, and you don't have time to go through the whole P.Eng process, you can just apply for the EIT. It's simpler because all you have to do is validate education. And then when you have the 1 year of work experience that some provinces require, then you can do the jump from EIT to P.Eng because the academics have already been satisfied. So let's talk about work experience. You could have two choices. So thank you, Angela, for putting questions. I'm going to start answering them at 30 minutes after. So thank you for adding it. Yes. In fact, you should all add questions now. I will respond to them in about 12 minutes when I begin the Q&A. So you can have one of two situations. You can have all your work experience being Canadian because you graduated from engineering in Canada, or you have worked here in Canada for at least 4 years, minimum 4 years of engineering work. That is your Canadian work experience. If you instead have work experience from outside of Canada, foreign engineering work experience, as long as you can achieve 1 year of Canadian work, the rest of your work experience can make up for those extra 3 years that are needed. So let me clarify that. Your regulator could have a different rule. Ontario, I think they changed this Canadian work experience requirement. Alberta has not. They still require the 1 year of Canadian work experience. But we can be patient and wait for all the other provinces to match Ontario. In the meantime, it's only 1 year. I'll give you some tips on how to find work that fits the engineering requirements, even though you're not a P.Eng yet. So either you have all your work experience in Canada, you should have at least 4, and it has to be validated, of course, by your bosses and your colleagues, or you have engineering work outside of Canada. If you are doing work for Canada, but you are based in another country, that could mean Canadian work. So let me repeat that again. If you were doing work for Canada, engineering work for Canada, but you were living in another country at the time, as long as the work is meant for Canadian use, then it qualifies as Canadian work experience, even though you were doing it in another country. For example, I used to work in pipelines, and a lot of my engineering work was being done in Philippines, in Cebu, Philippines. So the work of those Filipino and Filipina engineers was meant for Canada, for Canadian use. So they have Canadian experience. So make sure that you organize your resume to list what type of work you have just in case. So Canadian engineering work or foreign engineering work, at least 1 year needs to be Canadian work. How do you get validation for all this work? You need to call your bosses. Whoever was your boss at the time that you were doing this work, even if that person has left the company, it does not matter. They are a witness to the work that you were doing at the time. At the time. If you cannot find your boss, ask a colleague, somebody that witnessed your engineering work, either in Canada or in another country. Colleagues can also validate your work because they were witnesses to the work that you were doing. Finally, clients. If you cannot find colleagues, if you cannot find bosses, find your clients, your customers, the people that you were submitting engineering work to. These clients can also validate the work that you did for them. In fact, they are the ones that receive the work. They literally have all the work that you did because you submitted it to them. So make sure that your work experience is validated. Ask your bosses, even if they already left the company. Ask your colleagues, even if they already left the company that you used to work on. And ask your clients if you can find them. Olanike, thank you for adding those questions. I'll respond to them at the 30 minutes. Perfect. So don't give up. Your regulator, whichever province in Canada you're applying to, your regulator needs to have a validator, somebody that has witnessed your work, even if they were not your boss. Colleagues, clients can provide that validation. For work experience in the world of, in my world, because I'm a P.Eng in Alberta, my regulator of APEGA has 22 competencies, 22 work skills that any applicant in Alberta needs to fulfill. So those 22 competencies for P.Eng fall under 6 categories. Category 1, technical competence. Have you actually done engineering work with math, chemistry, physics? Have you actually done technical work in engineering? Competency category number 2, communication. Can you communicate in English or French, depending on the province you're going to work for? Can you write emails, professional emails? Can you write reports? Can you write tables of information? Can you write memos? Can you write project plans? Communication is critical in engineering because you could be very smart on the inside, but if you cannot communicate, then that's hurting your work because the work that you have in your head has to be transported, communicated to the clients, to the colleagues, to the society. So communication is another set of skills that have to be fulfilled. Category 3, project and financial management. Can you manage money? Can you manage resources? Can you manage risks, quality? Category 4, team effectiveness. Are you good at managing people? Are you good at being a team player? Are you able to understand the challenges of teamwork and still come out ahead? Category 5, professional accountability. So that is ethics, professional behavior. And finally, category 6, social, economic, environmental, and sustainability knowledge or skills. Your work impacts society. And because your work impacts society, you have to understand how your work is having a social impact, an economic impact, an environmental impact, and a sustainability impact. Those 6 categories are a total of 22 separate skills that you have to fulfill. How do you find your references for all this work? Because they have to validate those 22 competencies. You need to use social media, I think. LinkedIn is one of my favorites to find past bosses, past colleagues, and past clients as well. but use whatever social media that you can to find them. If you don't have a P.Eng and you don't have Canadian work experience, you might need to find an engineering job ahead of your P.Eng. So, how do you find an engineering job ahead of your P.Eng? Very easy, actually. You can make sure that your resume lists all your engineering education, and you can work under the supervision of a professional engineer as long as necessary until you fulfill the Canadian work experience requirement. You may also work as a technologist. I've had people who don't have their P.Eng yet. They don't even have their EIT yet. They haven't applied for it, but they are working as technologists. They happen to have a separate diploma from before as an engineering technologist. They have their CT, Certified Engineering Technology status, and they were able to still do engineering work under the supervision of a P.Eng. So that's still qualified. So that's past experience. If you have no luck finding a job to fulfill these requirements, apply for your EIT because they only need education, they only need academics. Once you validate the academics, you can get your EIT, engineering training status, you can find job as a junior engineer, and then later you can transfer to the P.Eng when you fulfill the work experience requirements. So transfer to P.Eng from EIT is somewhat easier because you're able to get a job since you have an EIT status. Yeah. There, those are the first two, academics and work experience. Those are by far the two heaviest loads that you have in your application process. Very heavy. Academics and work experience are the two biggest challenges you have. The other three, not so bad. In fact, I only have one slide for professionalism and ethics, good character, and language. So here are the last three. Professionalism and ethics, you have to have an exam. It's called the MPP, National Professional Practice Examination. It has questions about engineering law, engineering professional standards, engineering ethics, talks about engineering patents, engineering trademarks, all of these other things besides math that you have to know. I think the exam is easy. I think compared to calculus and compared to chemistry, this PPE is so easy in comparison to the other ones. You just have to prepare for it because you don't know the laws in Canada or you don't remember all the ethical training that you receive at the Canadian University. In any case, that exam is easy, in my opinion. Maybe not for you, but for me, it was. Number four, good character. So the regulators, because this profession is so important, they want you to have good character. And you do that with personal references. That was my warning that is 30 minutes after the hour. And finally, language. You need to validate your control of the English language or French, depending if you're applying in Quebec, so that you can do the work. If you cannot communicate well in English or French, you cannot put your engineering knowledge into practice because nobody understands what you are writing in the report or the memo or you're stamping drawings that you don't understand yourself. So very important that you fulfill the education one. Before I go into the Q&A, a word about rejection. Many of my friends and my students, actually, because I teach engineering in university, have been rejected, either for the EIT or for the P.Eng. Please know, it's not the end of the world. You should turn this rejection into fuel to motivate you and to turn things into action. They will give you feedback. The regulator will say you're missing step 2 or you're missing step 1 of the 5 criteria. So you have two choices, follow the feedback or appeal the decision. Following the feedback is you're going to do the exams they ask you to do, or you're going to go back to work and work an extra 6 months to fulfill the 1-year Canadian work requirement, or you can just appeal the decision. ask for a reassessment, or a full-on request for appeal. If you're rejected for your P.Eng, you can appeal, meaning I believe my application is complete. I believe there's a mistake. Please review my application again. Different people review the appeals. Different people. It's not the same people who rejected you, which is very good news. A whole different perspective on your application. This new person could come up with the same answer. No, you have to do step one again, or you have to do step two again, or you have to do step three again. But the odds are low. The new person might see the application from a different perspective, and it might turn it into an approval. So always, always, always either follow the feedback or appeal the decision. Don't just walk away. Walking away doesn't get you the P.Eng. Um, you have to go back. You turn that rejection into motivation. Please remember, people who were born in Canada also get rejected for their P.Eng. Born here, educated here, they worked here, their application was just incomplete. Now imagine foreign applicants. We don't know exactly how to write it in the Canadian way. Um, so rejection is normal. Please know rejection is normal. Tips for you: be organized, find references, know why. Why do you want to be a P.Eng? All of these will help you achieve the P.Eng the first time around. Be organized, get all your paperwork in order, find your references. You need to find these people to help you validate the work that you did in another country, and even here in Canada. And finally, know the why. In summary, please don't color on the screen. You're like my students. You want to color on my slides. So these are the 5 steps. So let's go quickly into the Q&A. I'm going to start with the items on the chat. So the first question was from Angela. Does it apply to all provinces? I don't think Ontario has an EIT anymore. You are correct, Angela. Ontario, PEO, Professional Engineers of Ontario, has been at the, I guess, the leader in updating the whole P.Eng process. The other provinces in Canada, the other regulators in Canada are slowly catching on. Ontario is desperate for engineers to come to Ontario. So they are making the application process not easier, but have less barriers, I guess. It's not that it's easier. You still have to do education experience and all that, but there's less barriers, especially for underrepresented groups, women, immigrants, people with disabilities. Very important that these barriers are removed because the world that women live in engineering is not the same world that men live in engineering. We have there's different expectations on us. So thank you for that, Angela. Ontario may not have the EIT anymore. People go from graduation to P.Eng once they fulfill the requirements. Olanike, do the colleagues and clients need to have a P.Eng designation to be able to validate the work experience? No. So Olanike, P.Eng is an invention of Canada. It's invented in Canada. US doesn't have a P.Eng, they have a PE, professional engineer, and they have laws that are different from us. So not every engineer in the United States has a PE. So they cannot expect, the regulator cannot expect that all the countries in the world will have a P.Eng. So it's not a requirement. Depending on the competency that is being validated, they might require a copy of the engineering degree of that person or a science degree. So they might need a printout or a screenshot of their engineering degree, bachelor degree, or their science degree to validate certain work skills. So try to see if they're willing to share their bachelor degree. So thank you, Laniki, for that question. Kelvin, how do I provide validation for competency assessment as part of the application in BC when some of the work are based from prior moving to Canada? So Kelvin, in Alberta, not Ontario and not other provinces, they have different requirements for work experience. So you need to find a past boss, a past colleague, a past boss of your boss. I forgot to say that. The boss of your boss can still be a validator. Yeah, boss of the boss of the boss. As long as they witness your work, they are part of that. So, Kelvin, if you can find those people that witness your engineering work in another country, it's just an email, right? It's just an email. They can validate your work in the P.Eng application, and the regulator can communicate with them via email to make sure that all the answers from the regulator are responded to. So that's how you provide validation. The people that witness your work before moving to Canada need to communicate with it by email with your regulator. And there's a whole application process. They have to add their name, their email address, and they have to approve these competencies via an automated portal. So it's all done electronically. So thank you, Kelvin, for that question. Marina, I registered as an AIT with a PEGA last summer. I'm from the US and graduated with a 3-year civil engineering. Once I graduated, my career has been in the field of advancement. I was working at university before I moved to Canada at the end of 2022. On paper, it looks like a career, and it has felt that this has been the focus when I've interviewed at engineering companies. How can I set myself up to prove I'm competent? I haven't used AutoCAD Civil 3D since 2017, but it feels like my memory or experience is not where they want it to be. While I may not need the full education, are there resources to be able to get a refresher in certain areas or systems? My name also has a Spanish pronunciation. Marina, yeah. So Marina, it's okay. Technology has changed so much that even the thing from 2016 might not be valid. So catch up, I guess. There's of course, LinkedIn is one of my favorite places for training, upgrading some work skills. LinkedIn, there's a lot of institutes that teach online, universities, technology institutes. All of these offer these training that can fulfill some of those gaps. Um, you don't have to work in AutoCAD. I mean, not every civil engineer works in AutoCAD. So if you're not comfortable with it, you can just find a job that doesn't require it. But you should be able to read them, at least read the output of the AutoCAD software. Um, Education never stops, Marina. I wish I could tell you it's over, no more schooling needed, but no. Even I teach engineering in university, and sometimes they tell me, "Can you teach this course?" And I have to tell them, "I haven't done this since I was an EIT." Oh, yeah, you just have to upgrade your knowledge. So they send me to training so I can teach it to the students. Very, very, very interesting. I'm still learning in my advanced age. Yeah. Thank you, Marina, for the question. Hola, Nike. Does a master's degree count towards 1 year of experience in Alberta and a PhD another 1 year, thereby reducing the 4 year work experience requirement to 2 to 3 years? And how does keeping a logbook work or is not used in Alberta? So, hola, Nike. It depends on what courses you took in the master's or the PhD, and it depends on the community work that you were doing. Maybe you were working for a client in your master thesis project or your PhD thesis. You were working with industry, doing research for them. So that is how work experience is counted. It does not affect the education. You have to have a bachelor degree in engineering. But for the work experience, if you were doing a thesis for the master's or a thesis for the PhD, and depends on the courses you were taking, they may be able to contribute to the competencies, the 22 competencies. My experience, I had a master's degree from the University of Alberta, and it was 1 year. I finished it really fast. Um, I I sped up all my courses and I sped up the project, the thesis project. They were able, the regulator was able to use some of that year, not all of it, some, a few months of that master schooling, not the whole year. So it has to be validated piece by piece to see which items can be transferred. So yes, it might be able to reduce your 4 year work requirement. And keeping a logbook, we teach it. We teach logbooks in school, but as long as you have a record, a clear record and references for all the work, it doesn't matter how you keep it. Um, it's important that you keep it though, that you have dates, names of projects, names of companies, contact information for the witnesses, your references, all of that kept on a logbook or some sort of document. So thank you, Elanike, for that question. Manav, hello, Claudia. I currently work in Canada for a Canadian company. By my team, and most of my work is located in the US. I work on projects in the US mainly. How would that affect my application? Should I discuss to have specific Canadian experience? Manav, good news and bad news. Good news is that the US and Canada have transfer agreements. So US engineers can work in Canada and Canadian engineers can work in the US. And the validation is easier because the two countries are very similar. So there is some benefit to having your US work experience because there are, I don't remember the title. It's kind of like a friendship transfer equivalency between the States and Canada. So it could help with that. If they reply to you and say you still have to have Canadian experience, fine, you should have it. It might not be a full year. That's what I'm thinking. It might not be a full year, but you'll see. You'll see what the regulator says. As long as you are very detailed, Manav, in how long you spent on each work section, and you have contact information for all your references, they might be able to transfer all of it. Maybe depends on the regulator. Depends on the work too. So discuss all the experience, Manav, not just the Canadian one, all of it. The US work may be easily transferable to Canadian. Yeah, because we have the same kind of weather and same kind of industries. A question from iPhone. In Alberta, does the validator, so thank you, Manav. iPhone. In Alberta, does the validator need to be an accredited, recognized engineer in Canada? Um, does the validator need to be an accredited, recognized engineer in Canada? No, they do not. So whoever is iPhone, no, they do not, because if this person is from another country, that country would have completely different rules on what makes a recognized engineer, what makes an accredited engineer. So there is no need for this person to be accredited in Canada if they are validating work outside of Canada. Very, very important that you get their contact information. Maybe the regulator will ask, especially Alberta, because you mentioned Alberta, will ask for a copy of their engineering degree. Sometimes it's needed for certain competencies. There's 22 competencies, and a few of them are technical. So those technical competencies, we might need to prove that this person has understanding of the technicalities of engineering, chemistry, physics, and so on. Martha Vega Smith. Oh yeah, thank you, Martha, for suggesting those courses. Udemy, Coursera, Epic, etc. There are tons of institutes and organizations that offer these training for people who have to learn a new skill for work. Yeah. iPhone again. What would be the most effective way for somebody outside of Canada, Latin America, to validate their engineering degree, Not looking for the shortest way. I'm looking for the best outcome, medium, long term. Upskilling cost is not an issue. So for iPhone, the validation is the same. You have to have an engineering degree, a bachelor degree, that matches the curriculum, the syllabus of the Canadian engineering degree. So it doesn't matter what country in Latin America, what country in Europe, what country in Africa, what country in Asia, Oceania, anywhere, as long as you can find a match between your engineering degree from back home to the engineering degree syllabus, curriculum, expectations from Canada, there has to be a perfect match. Perfect match. We cannot leave major gaps between your degree and the Canadian one because then your future employer is going to suffer. Your future employer is going to suffer because you're missing a big chunk of Canadian education that all the other engineers in the office have. So that's why the regulator takes that on. The regulator makes sure that you are a perfect match. Every university in the world is different. Some of you live in countries where the universities are not available to respond to questions from the regulator in Canada. I mean, I'm thinking of people in Syria. The universities in Syria may be too busy dealing with the whole war to be able to worry about an email from a regulator. I'm not sure about Ukraine, but every country has their own political situation, their own war situations. They may not be able to respond to questions from a regulator in Canada because that is not life and death. So it's very possible that your university is not responding to the regulator. And that's okay. You're going to have to, next time you go on vacation to visit your family, you're going to go to the university over there and you're going to demand a copy of all your courses and descriptions of your courses because APEGA needs them or whatever regulator it is. PEO is the Professional Engineers of Ontario. So don't be angry with your regulator. Sometimes the anger is towards your home university. They never responded. They never send the required documents, or their curriculum, their syllabus is completely different from the Canadian one. So Canada is like, we need a match. We need a match, right? It is really important. Um, so upskilling cost, I'm glad you say that upskilling cost is not an issue because you might need to write those exams, those fundamentals of engineering exams. Yeah. One of my friends, she actually has a degree from France. You would think that France would have a coordination program with Canada because we're a bilingual country, right? But they don't. So she had to write seven exams to match her French engineering bachelor degree to the Canadian engineering bachelor degree. So imagine that. She was from France, which you would think would be in a perfect agreement with Canadian laws and regulations. No, they were different. So she had to write seven exams to fulfill her requirements. Mind you, she was very motivated. She had a job with a famous engineering firm in Montreal. So that was a requirement to get promoted. Of course, she wrote the seven exams. She was already on her career path. So, very important. iPhone question again. Is the validation process available for international candidates not in Canada then? Um, iPhone, you have to check because you're in Alberta, you have to check the APEGA website. Everything is done via email. The links are sent to your validators, to your references via email. So they don't need to be present in the office of the regulator at all. Everything's online. So if your regulator is in, let's say, Colombia, that's the country I'm from, it's just an email from a Colombian engineer sending information to the regulator, as long as they can justify that you do have that experience. Yeah. Funke, I'm an EIT, but have recent work experience in Canada as engineering research technologist? Will this experience count towards P.Eng? Also, does a project management training count towards the project and financial management competency requirement with APEGA? Funke, yes. There are 22 competencies. As long as you fulfill them while you were doing your engineering research technology work or during your project management training, you all of that qualifies. It has to be evaluated. Of course, you have to explain it, and then the evaluators in the regulator's office have to read your justification, and they have to consult with your references to make sure that everything is clear. Yeah. Sorry, I meant for a non-resident. Depends. I think you have to be a resident of Canada to get a P.Eng. I think so. Yeah. Temporary visas, I don't think you can apply for a P.Eng. No, no, you have to wait until you're a resident. Yeah. You can still work in engineering. It's just not with the P.Eng. yet. Can I have an engineering bachelor degree out of Canada, which is certified by WES, World Education Services? Do I pass first requirement academics? Can, it depends on the level of the match. So there may be what the word certified means might be 80% complete, might be. So I'm not sure what WES uses as a perfect certification. So submit it all to your regulator. Yes. Yes. Submit the letter from WES, the information from WES. WES is a normal provider of education validation for APEGA, for example. So they know who they are. They know who they are. My pleasure, iPhone. Yeah. Thank you, Khan, for the question. iPhone, I will check with Apega. Thank you. Perfect. Manav, thank you for the guidance and all the answers, Claudia. My pleasure. I have 7 more minutes if you want to ask me questions. Some of you are sending me direct messages, secret messages. Put it on the everybody chat. Yeah. Idowu, put it on the chat, please. Write it on the chat. Yeah. So to summarize, while you still send me the questions on the chat, getting this P.Eng. in Canada will enhance your career opportunities and recognition. It will. Once you have the P.Eng., you are on a level playing field with all the other job applicants for your dream job. P.Engs give you both honor and money. You get paid more as a P.Eng. than as an EIT. Very important that you believe it, especially for those of you who are underrepresented members of engineering. In Canada is women and immigrants. So for us women, and I'm both, I'm immigrant and a woman, hey, getting the P.Eng. changed my career. Totally changed it because now people trusted that I had the knowledge and the work experience. I came to Canada very young. I was a teenager. So my real education in engineering was all in Canada. I had 1 year of engineering in Colombia, but the rest, like the full 4 years, was in Canada. My work experience was in Canada. So it was very smooth, the application process. And it did change my career. I was able to be promoted, for example, to supervisor of construction. I was able to get a job as a professor of engineering. You have to have a P.Eng. to be a professor of engineering in Canada, and you have to have a P.Eng. to oversee EITs in Canada. So very important that you get it. Even if you are not looking for work, you already have a good job, and it doesn't require a P.Eng. I would highly suggest getting it anyway, so that it can be available whenever you need it. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Idowu, for the question. As an EIT in Alberta, does working on the supervision of a P.Eng. for 4 years mandatory, or can previous engineering experience in my previous country count toward the 4 years? All of it, Idowu. All of it. In Alberta, because you mentioned Alberta, as a minimum 1 year of work experience in Canada, and the rest, the other 3 years, could be from another country. But we need references. The people that were overseeing your work in those countries need to talk to the regulator. Need to talk to the regulator. If the regulator cannot speak with the people that witness your work in another country, you are not getting your P.Eng in Canada. It has to be a conversation, obviously online, between the regulator and that person in the other country that happened to be overseeing your work. If the university in your home country is not communicating with the regulator in Canada, you're not getting your P.Eng either. So, very important that we remember it is not the regulator's fault a lot of the times. It's not the regulator's fault a lot of the times. Sometimes it is the fault of your home employer or the fault of your home university. They are distracted. They don't have time to respond to the regulator. Marta, why is it important to go through the P.Eng process? In my case, once in the process, I'm studying for the two technical exams. Oh, Marta, you did two exams, right? They asked me to do. I learned that the structural steel design in Canada was different from the design principles I learned in Venezuela. So that was an eye opener and a good reason to go over the exams they asked me to take. Imagine working at a company and not doing the design per Canadian standards. Totally true. Totally true, Marta. Yeah. And I'm from Colombia, next door to Venezuela. So my um I guess work experience in Colombia would have been in Spanish. To speak structural engineering in English is a whole different deal. What if I confuse the word beam with the word slab? Beam, vertical, oh, sorry, horizontal, slab is the whole floor, column. What if I confuse those terms from Spanish to English? So that's a risk. That's a huge risk. So, in the last 2 minutes, I just wanted to remind you that because you attended this session, you get two free tickets to the Women in Engineering Summit. It takes place online on Friday, May 23, 2025. You don't have to be present in wherever the speakers are. Everything is online. We have speakers from all over Canada. So so you just have to log in online. The event is all day and there are networking sessions. We have door prizes. So all of you get two tickets for one person, you and another person you want to bring. You should communicate with our organization. So I'm going to put it on the chat, info@womenineng.ca. If you want to volunteer, email info@womenineng.ca. If you want to sponsor our summit, email info@womenineng.ca. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's free. You don't have to pay for membership to LinkedIn. It's just a social media site. Good luck, everyone. Do not give up. Do not give up. The job is beautiful. Like, being an engineer in Canada is a beautiful job. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the week. Bye, Tanisha. Bye, Khan. Bye, Winifred. Bye, Dowu. Bye, Angela. Bye, Aurora. Bye, Funke. Bye, Olanike. Bye, Marta. Bye, Marina. Bye, Pierina. Bye, Winifred. Good luck, everyone, with your P.Eng. Go make some money. Yeah, my pleasure. Yes. And I'll see you at the Women in Engineering Summit. Yeah, I'm one of the speakers, actually. I'm talking about how to get a raise, a salary raise. Uh-huh. My favorite topic, how to make more money in engineering. Goodbye, everyone.